everyone, and welcome to the Balanced Bodies Blueprint. I am your host, Vinny Russo.
And I'm your co-host, Dr. Erin Stansfield.
And we're shifting gears from all the conventional fitness narrative you hear on most fitness podcasts, as our main emphasis lies in preventative healthcare, adopting a holistic approach to nutrition, and challenging the traditional views on various fitness topics.
Our mission with this podcast is to provide you with the information you need to achieve optimal health.
And on today's podcast, we have a very important guest. I have to stress important because of the craze that's been going on in the fitness industry lately. So she is an expert, and we're so fortunate to have her on and give our listeners some valuable content on peptides today. But I would like to welcome Leigh Baxt to the show. So thanks for doing this for us, and thanks for scheduling us during your busy schedule.
It's a pleasure to be here.
So why don't you do this? Why don't you give us a rundown of who you are, so my listeners, if they don't know who you are already, I know we share each other's content a lot.
Yeah, absolutely.
If they don't know who you are, just give them a rundown of who you are, what you do, and your expertise in this area of peptides.
Yeah. So I'm a scientist. I have a PhD. I've worked in science my entire career. I'm also the child of a scientist and a doctor. My husband's a scientist. There's some science in the blood here.
Yeah.
So I study translational research, and I work in preclinical drug development. Now, I don't work in the pharmaceutical industry. I work in a really unique, it's a unique group. We're positioned within an academic research institution, but we're like a biotech that's embedded in academia. So it's a group of professionals who understand what it takes to move from this is interesting biology to this could be harnessed therapeutically in humans. And we do the first few years of preclinical drug discovery work to get from that interesting biology to does it have the potential to become a new therapeutic. I work in several different modalities. So different types of molecules. I work on small molecules. I also work on biologics. Peptides kind of fall in between. Yeah. We have some peptide drug conjugate projects. We're not currently working on any of the peptides that you hear about. And I, have no affiliation with anyone who's profiting
in these areas to say stuff.
No, this is all of my science communication is just a hobby, honestly. I think that kind of undersells it because I think it's really important. But watching what's happened to science over the last year or two, especially in the United States, has been really disheartening for people like me and my family. And last year, the not-for-profit I worked at was dissolved and shut down, and I was laid off along with all my coworkers. My husband, who is a researcher who runs a research lab with like 18 people, lost 4 of his 5 NIH grants. So he was looking at having to let people go. And he works in a pretty important area, happens to be in infectious disease research, which isn't really being prioritized right now. So, talking about science is great, but I really felt like there was a need to bring science to the non-science world in a way that is accessible and understandable for everyone, because science benefits all of us, and helping people to understand why studying Komodo dragon saliva might be beneficial to us. Yeah. And if you don't know the backstory there, one of the first GLP-1 receptor agonists was identified in the saliva of the Komodo dragon and became a drug called exenatide. So, science is important, and I just want to share my love of science with the world in a way that everybody gets to understand it and how it benefits them.
Yeah, and I think we need experts like you to be able to take time to do this, because you have everyone playing their own scientist, their own experimenter with themselves, or you got coaches in my realm that do it with their clients just to see sort of what happens. And it's like, oh, you can't do that. So having someone like you with the expertise actually come out and take the time to explain this stuff in the fitness industry, because everyone has an AI that they could go to. Everyone has Google they could search to, and then they feel like they're their own experts. And then they push out this information that's a total nonsense. And you have all of this misinformation everywhere. So it's up to you, and we're going to throw the burden on you particularly, to kind of come in and just kind of clean up this stuff, right? Kind of take your broom of expertise and sweep out the trash. So we really, just your content alone, and that's sort of how we met, right? With your content, with my content, you happen to share like one of my posts about like a peptide cheat sheet, which
yes, I love that post.
It fell in line with exactly like what you were saying at that time, and you shared it, and then it got shared by a podcast that you were on recently.
One of my favorites, by the way.
Yeah.
Oh, who was it?
Unbiased Science. the science
Oh,
pod.
Yeah.
I
I
didn't
love
know.
them.
Yes.
I am like a
So
faithful listener. And when you were on there, I think that's where I came into contact with you, is like hearing them talk and having you on. I was like, oh, this lady really knows what she's talking about. This is
Yeah.
awesome. So thank you again,
Yeah.
like for
So I've
talking to
also
us.
been a fan. I've been a fan of unbiased science for years. I followed
Yeah.
Jess from when she started, and actually, when I started doing some science communication on Instagram, within a couple months, she reached out and asked if I wanted to be part of their team. So
Yeah. You're a
I do a
contributor
lot of
now.
series.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm on their website. I do a
Oh,
lot of contribution to their content. Anything
Yep.
they do in peptides, I'm usually reviewing, adding to, or editing. So
Yeah.
that's
being on their
awesome.
podcast was like full circle for me. I was like, I'm fangirling while I'm being here.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah. That's good. She was
So
kind of like
yes.
that. So
Yep.
she was on the Nadowski's podcast, the Docs Who Lift,
Yeah.
and she
Oh,
was
they're
like a fan. She was a
amazing.
big fangirl.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like this is like a full like a dream come true, you know? Like I listen to them all the time. I think they're great. And so,
They
but I also
are.
feel the same way about the unbiased pod. And so,
Oh,
especially
that's
like
so
the public
cool.
health realm, I think that
Yeah.
it's so important to have that communication, especially now. Um,
Yeah. And that
and
group
so
is great. There's like 40 or 50 of us who just volunteer to help put content together and work with the team. And everyone has such a broad skill set. There's like so many different kinds of expertise. There's graphic designers who help put together those beautiful posts
Yeah.
that they
Yeah.
make.
oh,
Yeah.
If you haven't seen it, highly recommend the flesh-eating bacteria and brain-eating amoeba post I did a few months ago. It was
nice.
definitely one of the coolest graphics ones I've gotten to be part of. So
That's cool.
anyway, but yeah,
Well, if they
cool,
need any more
excited.
volunteers, I'll volunteer my MD
Oh,
over here.
oh my God, I'm sure they would. You should definitely tell them. They'd be psyched.
I think they do great work. So anyway, thank
Thank
you
you.
again for being on. We appreciate being a part of it.
Yeah, and like I said, like that's sort of how we met, was you putting out content and then us just happened to me putting out something that just happened to fall into your lap. And then we just started communicating, and like then we were sending each other people that like, do you hear this guy? Like he's saying
Yeah,
this, and then you
exactly.
would comment, and then I would comment following you, and like we support each other in the comment section.
I love it.
Yeah, it
I
was
love
pretty
it.
cool. It was pretty cool.
And
So
honestly, seeing the content coming out from someone like you when you made the peptide cheat sheet, I was like, when you see this stuff and you come from sort of my background, you're just like, am I crazy? Like, am I missing something? Like,
yeah,
why? This seems so misaligned with the things that I know, but maybe I'm just missing something. So when I started to see people like you, and Stuart Phillips and other people putting out content about peptides, echoing everything I was saying with like a slightly different perspective, I was
yeah,
like, okay, no, it's not me. It's
yeah,
really,
yeah.
this is like becoming a thing, and we
That
need
was the
to address
validation
it.
you needed. Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah.
thank you for making me feel less crazy.
yeah. So let's dive into it, because
All
peptides
right,
are the big craze right now, right? And then
they
they're
are.
exploding everywhere. So because they've become one of the hottest topics, why do you think so many people are actually gravitating towards them right now?
Well, the idea of injected medications is not new. There have been injected medications for many years. My mom has an autoimmune disease. She's taken lots of biologics. And so those are injectables. But
Yeah,
this hasn't really been a widespread thing in society until the GLP-1 receptor agonists kind of became mainstream. And
yeah,
everybody is now talking about them because, frankly, they've been a huge paradigm shift in terms of our ability to treat certain conditions. And they're amazing. I mean, you now have ones like, you know, Retta that are going to, in theory, make it so people don't need like bariatric surgery, because their effects are so strong. So
yeah,
I think as these have become more mainstream, the idea of injecting medications is something that people are becoming increasingly more comfortable with. And then you add to that the fact that these are peptides. So everybody's talking about peptides. And then you add on top of that the sort of disenfranchisement of people from like the medical community, our issues with our healthcare, medical infrastructure, people not feeling as if they're being heard or like they're not getting treatment or support, not being listened to. I think people are looking for solutions. And so then you create this kind of perfect storm where you go to some Instagram page with some gorgeous woman who's, in her 40s, who's like super fit and injecting these peptides. And I want to feel like that. I want to
yeah,
look like that,
yeah, yeah,
Or the same for guys. Like there's certain audiences that these are very much targeted to. And I think, the marketing sounds really scientific and it sounds really appealing. But when push comes to shove, the data really, in most cases, just isn't there yet. And
yeah.
maybe it will be at some point. I always tell people I'm not anti peptide, I'm just pro data. I like to make decisions in my life based on data.
Yeah, we
That's like what I'm
usually
Absolutely.
trained to do.
we usually say we're like we're not against peptides. We're actually rooting for them, but we got to wait until the
Yeah,
evidence comes out to be able to say, okay, yeah, you guys can use them. Like listen,
exactly.
if all this stuff is true, if MOTS-C and KPV they could do everything that they're being promoted to do, great. When the human trials come out and it gets approved, I might be the first one to take them. Like
Yeah,
I'm pro peptide, but just
yeah,
not without the evidence.
yet.
So
Yeah,
yes,
exactly.
I think I'm a little more cautious than that. And I think like
that's
from
your
a
MD
yeah,
Yeah,
saying
what's your
that.
perspective as a
from a
physician?
physician standpoint, like I'm like I would never there's not enough data there to recommend this to patients, right? So why would I they can't be an N of one. You
Yeah,
know. And so to me it's like how do we best educate people? Because I think you're absolutely correct, right? People see that or feel sometimes unheard by their physician. And sometimes they even assume like this doctor doesn't know about peptides. I looked this up. I did my own research.
Yeah.
research.
I know this stuff. And so they're willing to be the risk taker. And I think it behooves us in the medical community to really discuss the risk side of that, right?
Absolutely.
If you choose to go down this path, you need to know what data is out there and what kind of risk you're looking at. And unfortunately, I
Absolutely.
think we we don't know the risk.
Yeah.
No, that's what I always say as that like the point of the therapeutic development pipeline is to get a quantitative readout of the risk and the benefit to ensure that that risk benefit ratio is appropriate to the patient population,
Yeah.
right? If I'm developing a cancer medication, it's a very different risk benefit analysis than if I'm developing a peptide to aid in healing of a minor injury, right? Those are very different patient populations. And there's a reason that we have the whole process that we do.
Yeah, that's interesting. Can you kind of touch on that process a little bit and so that our audience will understand that, hey, they're actually we do look at this in science, right? We don't just
Yeah.
ignore this.
Yeah, I think really understanding the level of detail and the depth that occurs in the drug development process is something that you don't hear about and you don't see. And the other thing is the failure rate at all of these steps is
Mhm.
also something that you don't hear about or see. And I think those are two of the really key things to bring up here. So, when we're developing a new medication, generally we're starting with like a target that we want to affect. Here you have maybe a peptide that has an interesting, biological behavior. Your next step in most cases would be to figure out what target it's binding to and how it's affecting that target, right? GLP-1 receptor agonists were developed because we wanted something to bind to the GLP-1 receptor and agonize or turn it on in a specific way for a specific period of time to have specific downstream biological effects.
Mhm.
So we don't even know the molecular target of many of these peptides. So we come in with a target, we try to develop a molecule. There's a lot of work in sort of biochemical and cellular assays that goes into tweaking and optimizing these molecules. Most things in their sort of natural state aren't going to work well as therapeutics, right? Our bodies are very tightly regulated systems where we can produce signaling molecules kind of on demand. They get degraded quickly. That's all intentional. They're designed that way in our body because that's how these systems work. You can't just necessarily take one of those things and inject it and have an effect. That's a huge leap. And most of the time, that doesn't work.
Mhm.
So we go through this process to develop a molecule. We do all this testing. Then we move into animal studies where we want to make sure that this molecule does what we are hoping it will do based on our cellular data. But we also do really important animal studies to de risk. And these de risking studies are based on the target and the kind of biology we're affecting. And there are specific types of studies that you're required to do to show that you don't pose risk. And all of that has to be done before you submit what's called an investigational new drug or IND package, which allows you to have approval for human trials. So that IND package will show you that with animal studies, we can show that this is going to work. We have a few different animal models. We can measure how much of it is in the system and trace that to the effect. So we see what's called a dose responsive relationship. I give more, I have a stronger effect. We also find biomarkers. Those are the things I can now measure in the bloodstream to show that I'm having the effect you want. So when you look at that medically, it's like if you're treating people in a clinical trial, they get blood work, and that blood work can help figure out if the treatment is working because we know what the biomarkers are. They were developed in animals. So we move into clinical trials, and now you have phases 1, 2, and 3. They are increasing in size. Phase one is focused on safety. So it's usually healthy volunteers. You're looking for the right doses and the way the thing is going to be given. And then in phase two, you move to efficacy, where you're treating people who have the condition you want to treat, and you're doing a larger study. In phase three, you move to, multiple different centers running really large trials on thousands of people. Now you're looking for how well does this treatment work? And also, how does it compare to whatever else is out there? So there are programs sometimes where they look awesome, but when you get out to phase three, they don't really compete with the current standard of care.
Mm-hmm.
So that might not be continued. Now, the other thing that I think is important to emphasize here is when you're doing clinical trials, yes, phase one is safety and two and three are efficacy, but we always track safety even during two and three and in the preclinical space. And there's a very high bar for safety. So even in the preclinical space, I can give you a concrete example. I have a friend working on a project that's contraception related, and they are doing studies currently in, I think, rabbits, and they may also have to do a couple of dog studies, which, none of us love animal research. We don't have a great proxy yet. And there are ethical regulations and veterinarians who oversee everything. So it's always done in the most humane way possible. But the bar that is set is such that the dose you need to have the effect that they want to show therapeutically as a contraceptive has to be 50 times lower than the dose where you first see any adverse event. And that adverse event doesn't need to be death. It could be anything. It could be like the animal's behaving a little weird, or the liver enzymes went up, or something. So there are like specific bars that are set for all of these processes. And the reason that we have all these processes and they're so strong and they're so regulated is because of things like thalidomide. I don't know if you guys have heard of thalidomide. Yes, right? So, people cite things like thalidomide as the reason that the pharmaceutical industry is horrible and, does all these terrible things. But actually, it's a process of trial and error like everything else in the world. And we've gone through so much trial and error that we have this very refined system where we go through all these different steps to make sure things are as safe as possible and that we can ensure there's a benefit to people before we release them into the wild, so to speak.
Yeah.
So that's kind of an overview.
It's crazy because you have people out there like you just alluded to where they're going to say, well, Big Pharma's after you, and it's FDA doesn't care about your health, and it's like take a look at the health, the safety standards that they set, and I didn't know all that, and it's intense. Like it's really intense. Like if like you said, if the animal's acting funny, it's got to be 50% lower than like that's
50 times.
50 times. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, I know.
It's better safe than sorry, though, right?
Yeah, especially when you're trying to treat a population of people who are healthy, right? Like contraception, that's not going to treat a disease that's going to kill someone. It's like something you're giving to healthy people. And these mostly are things that I think healthy people would be taking. So peptides, that is, they would be going to healthy people.
Well, speaking of that, so because a lot of the arguments here and a lot of the influencers will put out PMIDs and they'll say, look at the research. This is what the research says. And it's like, wait a minute. Take a look at that research and you'll see a lot of it's cellular and a lot of it's in rodents. And they're saying that stuff extrapolates, like they're making it seem like it extrapolates to humans. So when we're looking at that type of stuff, and one of their arguments, because I argue with these people all the time, it's one of the things I like to do. So one of their main arguments is, well, that's how all research starts. It starts in cellular and then it goes to rodents. It does. And I'm like, it does, but it still hasn't been proven in humans yet. So you can't say that the humans are going to get that benefit. So why isn't the cellular data or the animal data, why isn't that enough?
Especially for peptides, I would say, like in regards, because it's interesting that they've chosen these medications or these group, like we use peptides very loosely, right? Because GLP is a peptide that we have human data on.
Insulin's a peptide.
But so maybe walk us through that. Like where in the evidence loop are we with peptides? And why is that not enough?
So I did this little cartoon I guess it was a couple months ago. It's like a little roadmap with cars on it, and it has like some of the peptides and then some of the ones in testing and then the ones that are approved. It's just like, this is where they are. So there's a couple layers to this. Number one is when you find a PubMed ID of a published research study, like these people are sending to you. I frequently have people send me a study that's on like MOTS-C, right? And it's talking about what MOTS-C does in the body and how interesting the biology is. And this is all very real and awesome research. It's super cool. It has a lot of really great features, but that study is on the MOTS-C in the body and what it does there. It's not on taking extra MOTS-C and injecting it to have an effect. And that is a huge leap scientifically, one that mostly fails. If you look at the success rate going from I have an idea to now I have permission to go into human clinical trials, so that entire preclinical phase, the failure rate is more than 90%. Mm-hmm. And then you take that 10% that got the IND and gets permission to go into human trials. Of those 10%, 90% fail human clinical trials because we aren't animals. We are animals. We're not mice, right? Yeah. We're not rodents. Yeah. And that's why in these really late preclinical studies, they often require both a rodent species and a non-rodent species. There are different features in mice that are very different than humans. Like I work a lot on small molecule drugs, and small molecule drugs have a tendency to be processed and eliminated very quickly by mice, like much faster than in humans. So sometimes we have issues where we can't get good exposure of the drug in the mouse system, but we know that it will be different in the human. So you have to have a lot of other types of assays and proxies to sort of adjust for that. But, animals, the data usually translates about 5 to 10% of the time therapeutically. And the published studies that you see, those are usually coming from maybe academic researchers. The fact that they're published is almost the opposite of what you want to see as far as therapeutics development. When you're developing a new drug, you're not going to go out and publish that because it completely gives away your competitive advantage, and you're developing intellectual property. So you're going to keep that internal at your company while you work on that product, and you're going to get a patent, make sure that patent's really solid. You're only going to publish once you're pretty far down the road. So seeing academic papers that are published on various things really doesn't tell us anything about the drug development aspect of it. The job that I do is actually to work with academic researchers who have these cool findings, who are these leaders in their field and have incredible innovative science and want to harness that therapeutically. And that process is actually very challenging.
Yeah. Well, so I know my response to this, but what is your response when someone says, well, I took MOTS-C or I took KPV and it worked for me?
What was your control? That would be my first question.
Where's your response that I would have?
How do you know where's your clone? Yeah. How do you know it worked? Is number one. Like, you don't have a control. Maybe you can say, oh, I've had the same injury for a long time. I tried all these different things that didn't work, and this did work. That's great. I am glad that people feel good. I want people to feel good. I want people to be armed to, benefit their health with data, right? But saying something worked for you is not the same as a multi-center phase 3 clinical trial, because we don't know what your demographics are. We don't know what other things you might have changed. Frequently, people will be like, well, I started eating healthier and exercising, and I also injected BPC 157, and now I'm doing great. So BPC 157 is amazing. I'm like, but how do you know it wasn't those other things?
Exactly.
And the placebo effect. It's huge.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's like when
no one's immune.
A few clients will talk about like previous experience with supplements and how they were like, oh, when I started this diet, I went on this gut supplement and I had better bowel movements. I'm like, you started a diet.
Yeah, you changed what you were eating.
To do with it?
Yeah. And like everything changes your microbiome, which affects everything, right? Everything. Just changing what you eat affects it. Changing where you are, how often you're sleeping, everything affects epigenetics, the microbiome. Like, biology is very plastic.
Yeah,
it changes easily.
My response to those people would have been, I mean, your response is way better. What was your control? Like, I'm gonna use that from now on. I'm just usually like, I'm usually like, placebo's a hell of a drug. So
it is. No, that was the second thing I said. It's like, where's your control, and how do you know it's not the placebo effect? And I encountered a TV personality from The Bachelor who was promoting an oral pill of a peptide, and I explained that taking a peptide orally is basically just giving yourself really expensive bowel movements because most are not going to go into your body orally.
Yeah.
There's a reason they're being injected. And also, like, I know you feel great, but like it could also be the placebo effect. And he said, well, I don't have the placebo effect. I'm immune to it.
Oh, you're not human?
I was like, interesting. You
Yeah.
should be studied by psychologists
Yeah.
because wow, like
That's
groundbreaking.
funny. Let me ask
Yeah.
you this. Talking about all these non-FDA approved peptides, where are they in this drug testing process, would you say? Are they mostly in the preclinical phases? I don't know if you want to talk about the specific peptides that we're
Oh,
Yeah.
leading to.
if you can, please
Yeah.
aim the ones that have been thrown out already so we could get that
All
information
right.
out there. Yeah.
Well, so it's a mix, honestly, and the quality of the data, all of it is a mix. So there are things that are well on their way to FDA approval. They have tons of phase 3 data. So retatrutide would be one. You know, it's got great phase 3 data. Lots of people are sourcing this, and because they see this data, they're like, it's totally safe, but you're also sourcing it from somewhere that hasn't gone through all the manufacturing processes that are also part of the drug development process. So when you make a new drug and you're going to market it, you also have to show that you can produce it and that it's the
Mhm.
same thing every time, that it's pure, it's sterile, that it has shelf stability, et cetera, that, you know, when you mix it in its buffer, water, whatever, and then inject it, you're getting what you think you're getting and it's
Yep.
going where you think it's going. Like these are all parts of the process. So yeah, Retta is really close to the end. Something like there's some that were abandoned. So like CJC and like ipamorelin,
Mhm.
a lot of those were actually abandoned by the pharmaceutical industry. So they may have had data packages at some point with the target and some of that preclinical work, but they were abandoned in their clinical trials because they either didn't work or there could have been financial reasons. There's lots of reasons things can be stopped in clinical trials that are not always safety related. I know some of these were tested and showed poor efficacy, like they didn't work at all. And so they stopped using them, stopped testing them. There are some that I think probably do not have an IND data package. I haven't been able to find any of the preclinical de-risking studies. So like EPC 157 would be one of the big ones there.
Mhm.
So much hype with that one. Like all the research comes from a really small group of researchers in one area. We haven't really seen broad recapitulation of that science in the scientific. Um, People love to say, "Oh, but you can't patent it." But there are patents on it. They're held by companies that are affiliated with the guy who's an academic
Oh,
who was
interesting.
researching it. And I actually read an article last night on this chemistry website where they talked to him about the clinical trials because there were some early studies by these companies who held the patents for this, who are affiliated again with this academic. And he actually had a quote in there that was like, it works in mice. Of course it will work in humans. It's like 100% sure that it'll work in humans, something like that. And I was like,
What?
what? Like, there are tons of papers that show the exact opposite that have
Wow.
analyzed like huge amounts of like pharmaceutical research and you know, it's an academic researcher. I'm sure it's amazing. There is cool preclinical data, but seeing it only from one small group of people, it's been around since the 90s and we have not seen any companies who've been like, let me invest in this and move it forward. And people will say, oh, it's because you can't patent it. But again, there's patents on it. And most of these natural molecules would require tweaks and changes anyway to be appropriate to be used as therapeutics. And those changes would make them patentable, right? We have so many drugs that come from nature and we had to be able to optimize and patent them somehow. So that process is not the reason. I would guess that the data is not compelling enough, and the red flags in the data are not enough that companies want to invest in it. And you have something like TB 500,
Yep.
which is no human clinical trials, from what I've been able to find. No human studies at all. Actually, there may be a couple like exploratory human studies, but nothing like robust. And the issue with that one is also that people talk about TB 500, but that can mean a lot of things. So I've encountered people who are like, oh, it's the same as TB4. They're just calling it TB 500. And then other people who say, oh, it all refers to different fragments of TB4 of
Yeah.
different sizes. But like, you can make the smallest little molecular change to things and have this huge, huge effect. So it's pretty important that you study the exact molecule that we're talking about in all of these studies before you make any conclusions about benefits or risks, because you can't take a piece of something else and just assume the biology will translate. That's just not how science works.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So most of the marketing, that we hear, especially in the fitness, they talk about all the benefits. What are all the benefits of these peptides? They're so amazing. They heal you and they make you tanner and all of these crazy
Oh,
things.
that one scares me.
I know, isn't that crazy? Why does that one scare you?
Melanoma.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not a skin cancer doctor, but anything that is causing you to make more freckles and moles and having them get
Exactly.
darker and grow, like,
Yeah.
There's got to be. So speaking of that, what are some of the risks that you see that
yeah.
people might be taking on when they're injecting these unapproved peptides?
Yeah, there's a few levels of risk. I think the one that you'll hear about most often, especially on the clinical side, is the sourcing, that a lot of these kind of gray market, I bought it online, it's marked for research use only. There's no manufacturing oversight here. When you get something from like a compounding pharmacy, there's at least manufacturing oversight. It is not at the level of pharmaceutical manufacturing oversight, but it is more than zero.
Hmm.
And it's actually pretty good for different types of compounding pharmacies. So you're looking at something that has zero oversight. So you don't know what's in that vial. And yes, people can go and get third party testing to make sure there's no endotoxin, that the thing inside there is actually there. But it has not been through a rigorous manufacturing process prior to you getting it. So there's still risks associated. Um, that's the sourcing risk. But then we talk about the biology risk, which is the part that you don't hear about as much. The pathways that a lot of these promote are pathways that are also very attractive to cancer cells. So to be absolutely clear, because we don't like fear mongering, no one is implying that these are going to cause cancer. My concern is more that if you had some type of strange cellular growth in your body, and maybe, we have weird things happen in our body, DNA mutations, cells grow, things happen all the time, but our body's pretty good at like taking care of itself and catching things and eliminating them. But now you start adding in a peptide that's increasing the growth rate of the cells, or the proliferation, cell migration, angiogenesis, which is blood vessel growth. All of those things are really going to be beneficial to cancer cells. And those pathways are things that are very often upregulated in cancer. So I would not want to be inducing those pathways in an uncontrolled way that I wasn't aware of in my body. And I've heard people say, oh, but you can just have your blood checked and get like VEGF levels and other things. But I don't know that these processes work in a way that you can just get let me just go take a pathologic angiogenesis, right? You can't track it that way. It's just, it's a risk and you have no idea what the risk is.
I was just going to say, there's probably not a lot of
Go ahead.
clinical correlation between the laboratory studies. Like if somebody is saying, oh, they're trying to, be a little bit more scientific about it, there's no clinical correlation between that and a potential malignancy or early malignancy. So
Exactly.
we don't know that.
Yeah. There's no, everyone says, I'll just get I get blood work done and all my numbers look great. I'm like, well, what's the blood work for your slow growing cancer in your
Yeah.
thyroid or your,
Yeah.
prostate? Like,
Exactly.
what blood work measures that? Because you can't measure everything in blood work. It's just, otherwise nobody would ever get diseases. Like no one would have a cancer that gets caught at stage 4 if we could detect everything in blood work, right?
Yep.
Exactly. It's a little scary.
Well,
Right.
one of the risks that I see, and that drives me nuts, grind my gears for lack of a better term, is the protocols that people are giving
I
out.
love that. Protocols. It's
So
very scientific.
yeah, so
I
they're
use
giving out
protocols all the time, but
they're giving out dosage protocols based off of no human data really. And so what are your thoughts on that in terms of risk in general? And then if someone is out there giving out these dosage protocols, what would you like to say to them?
I mean, personally, I don't think anybody should be telling other people to use non-FDA approved peptides. And it's not because I think the FDA is the most amazing place or I love the pharmaceutical industry. People get really caught up on the idea of talking about why we need data and this drug development process. And they equate that to I love the FDA or
Yeah.
I love pharma. And those two things don't both have to be true. Like you can believe process that eliminates risk because you believe in science and you want to use data to make informed decisions while still being skeptical of regulatory bodies and profit driven, pharmaceutical industry. And there are plenty of issues in the track records of both of those industries. Like I had a post I put out one day where I said, like, I am allowed to be skeptical of pharma and the FDA while also thinking that the process is important. Like you can love your children and still feel like sometimes by the end of the day you need a little break. It doesn't
Yeah.
make you a bad parent. Two
Yeah.
things can be true.
Absolutely.
Um, so yeah, I don't think anybody should be recommending these, honestly. And I have seen a number of physicians who promote them and then have them offered as therapies in their clinics and are benefiting off of them. And I have questioned a few of them about this, where I'm like, well, how do you justify recommending GLP-1s but also BPC 157? You know that the evidence burden of those two is very different. Well, I always give informed consent. I was like, well, what does your informed consent look like? Because true informed consent is we have animal data on this. We don't have any human data. So I can't really give you any type of risk benefit
Yeah.
analysis or quantitative readout of what this will or won't do. But here you go. Like
I think
they're not
it's
giving that informed consent.
I think it's egregious when physicians do it. So I think it's egregious when anybody does it. Let's put it
Yeah, I
that
was
way.
curious what you thought about this because
But
you're a physician.
specifically when because I was going to bring this up earlier. I've seen
Yeah.
physicians do the same thing where they're promoting different unregulated peptides, and I'm like, you know better.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
crazy to me, and I'm like, this has to be malpractice. And it bothers me when fitness people do it, but it's a whole different level because I feel like most physicians on some level understand one that we're probably have had at least a course in drug development and
Yeah.
pharmaceuticals. And most of us have read clinical studies. We kind of know the general outline.
Yeah.
We spend a lot of time training. We go through med school, and some of us have masters in public health, for example. I have an occupational health. We had to read a bunch of studies, right? So we
Yeah.
understand how important data is. And to tell your patient, yes, take this risk, and you're in the wild, wild west, essentially, because there's no good data. When you talk about the risk
Yeah.
benefit, we don't know what the risks are or really the benefits. Like how do
Yeah.
you even, so when you say give informed consent, I think you're absolutely correct. Like, how do you give informed consent when you don't know what the risk is and you really don't know what the benefit is? What do you say to that patient? Good luck.
Yeah.
Well, I will say
I'll
this,
do
and
your blood work. We'll track your blood work.
I will say this. I've been seeing a lot of, and I'll put them in quotes, doctors who now it must have flooded my algorithm because I watched a few videos and now it's all I see. But there's doctors, aka chiropractors,
I
Oh,
was gonna
who
say, let me guess which specialty.
yeah,
I don't
yeah.
have
who
specialties. Let me guess
they are
which
A
educational
non-specialty, you
background.
mean?
Yeah.
they
Which
listen,
educational background?
they're everywhere now with, and it's not just that, they're talking about your gut health, they're talking about
Oh yeah.
reading labs and your hormones, and I'm like, you're abusing the fact that you have doctor in front of your name so people could trust you, and then you're going
I
off in
mean,
fields that
I
are
could
out
do
of your
that too.
scope.
Yeah, and that's the thing
Yeah.
is it's crazy to me the level of low entry, I guess, the fee of low
Yeah.
entry into social media and to
Yeah.
just kind of portray, or even if you portray something with a lot of confidence. Um,
Confidence is not competence. We'll just put it that way.
And I think
Yeah.
that it's so sad. Like to me, it's very sad because patients do ask me about it, right? I've
Yeah.
seen people in clinic and they're like, I heard that this peptide will help me with healing and I'm about to have this surgery. What do you think about it? And so then we have to have a conversation about, what's out there, what kind of data, what is that risk benefit ratio that
Yep.
is completely unknown. And then you have to do like this whole education piece and you're talking about, the medical system being stressed already and like people feeling like they don't have
Exactly.
enough time with a doctor. And so
Yep.
now doctors, in addition to, talking to a patient about, their normal clinical stuff, now we have to add in this misinformation, like try to combat this misinformation that they've
Yep.
gotten, from the internet or social media.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
how do you feel about that specialty
Yeah.
going out of their
I
scope?
actually saw a good post today. It was like, it's not all chiropractors, but it's always a chiropractor.
Oh,
Oh,
that's good.
It's like
today too.
it's not all men, but it's always a man. No
Yeah.
offense, Vinny.
No, that
I
I
was
saw
like,
that too, and I
well
laughed.
played.
Yeah.
Well
Yeah.
played.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I was talking to someone who's like a metabolic health type of general practitioner actually last night, because she had a video on peptides and I commented, and then she followed my page, and then I put something else up that she reshared, and I just messaged her to say thank you. Because I'm always appreciative of other professionals who are like, we are all sharing and amplifying each other's content. And I
Yeah.
think actually social media is one of the most like encouraging and supportive environments from a scientific standpoint that I've ever been in. Like science and medicine are really challenging to be in, and there's lots of competition and there's so much failure. But having started this like science communication is like so encouraging, and I think it's so nice.
Yeah.
I
So
love
I
how
started messaging
positive.
So you
her.
got the positive part. You got the positive spin
Well,
on it. Yeah.
there's the trolls
Awesome.
too, but we can block the
Oh,
trolls. It's okay. So she was like, I just got asked about BPC 157 today by a patient in clinic. And so I said, I don't see patients, obviously. I may have a doctorate, but I am not a physician.
Mhm.
I had someone tell me that I wasn't a doctor recently, and I was like, I'm aware. I have a doctorate. Thank you. I'm not giving medical advice because I'm not a doctor. Anyway, I just said, I think putting this educational content out there is a way to empower people to go and find the right information for themselves. And if spending time doing that, if all of those scientists can put information that people can be informed, then hopefully you get one less question in clinic that takes time away from what you need
absolutely.
to accomplish. So it's
Absolutely.
really a team effort here. And, I'm happy to be part of that village.
We are happy that you are part of
Yes.
it.
100%. 100%.
The other thing I didn't touch on earlier that I wanted to mention when we talked about the risks in the later stage of the preclinical development that we talked about, these de-risking studies, if you promote some of the pathways that these peptides promote, like cellular proliferation, angiogenesis, there are like specific studies that you need to do to de-risk that biology. And those haven't been done
Not
for
done.
these
Yeah.
peptides.
That's
So even if
interesting.
there's some preclinical data, most of them have not been through that. It's called IND enabling studies, and they're really focused on safety. There's a whole class called safety pharmacology and safety toxicology, and those studies have not been completed. So even if you see published animal studies where they said, oh, the animals didn't grow a tumor or whatever, that's still not the same as a very specific framework of what studies have to be done to truly say that there's no risk. And those studies have been time through trial and error as we've learned how to ensure safety.
Wow.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And I'm sorry if you hear our dog. He's sleeping right now and he's dreaming and he's going crazy.
He's
I love
he's
dogs.
having a good dream.
Yeah, he's going nuts right now.
My parents have a dog that sometimes when he was a puppy, he used to nurse in his sleep, which like,
Oh,
I
that's
don't know if you've
cute.
ever seen a
Yeah.
Labrador
With the
puppy, like,
tongue. Yeah.
yeah, with the
Yeah.
tongue out.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Or they like run in their sleep and they
Yeah.
make
Yes,
little
Yeah.
yeah.
barking noises.
He's
I,
doing
I can't
something.
hear it at
Yeah.
all.
He's definitely
He's
barking.
definitely doing something.
Trust me, it's quieter there than it is here. New York
Yeah.
City is not quiet. So no, I hear nothing.
So if we have to talk about regulatory changes, what do you
Mm,
think that we'll see over the next few years with this when things start to come to fruition?
yeah. Administration, really all bets are off about what you're going to see. I always
Yeah.
think I've seen it all, and now RFK is going to be in charge of special education. So that wouldn't have been in my cards for this year.
No.
But these regulatory changes, I think there's a few points that are important to highlight. Number one is if peptides are changed from this category 2, which is cannot compound, to category 1, which is we are allowed to compound. What that means is that you'll now be able to get them through compounding pharmacies. So one benefit of that is that they will have some regulation on manufacturing. They will have some oversight to make sure that what you're getting is actually what you're getting. So that I would say is a positive. But it will also mean that these are more mainstream and more people will be using them, and somehow doctors will prescribe them. And
I was
I
just
mean,
gonna say
Erin,
that
maybe you
opens.
understand this better than I do, but like if you're a doctor and you prescribe a non-FDA approved peptide, which is allowed at a compounding pharmacy, how does that work? Like if something happens, who's liable? Are you liable? Is the pharmacy liable? Did the patient sign a waiver? Like I don't know how all that's going to work.
I'm pretty sure the
So
doctor would be liable, and
I think so too. They always
that's
are.
that's not something I would want to ever take on. Here,
Exactly.
take this. I don't know if it works or not, and I don't
But
know what the side
but
effects are.
you can be my test subject.
Yeah, but you can try it. Don't
Yeah, let's
sue
get
me for
10
anything,
people.
please.
Favor. So you're going to have more accessibility. That does not mean that these are now FDA approved drugs, that there is new data, that they have been through any of the regulated processes that are required for pharmaceutical development. Um, it just means they're changing the category, and this categorization is truly an exemption from the standard process. So they are basically being given exemption from, in my opinion, the process that they should be put through, and that any
Scary.
other bioactive molecule affecting those pathways would have to go through.
Yeah, that's pretty scary.
Yeah, so I think you're going to see. I mean, with the current climate and the way things are going, and the fact that we have no regulation on social media for what people can say about these, like
Yeah.
I think you'll see continued uptake, and I really hope that this won't be the case, but you may see increased reports of people having adverse events from them, and I hope that that's not the case. Lots of people say that they're having great experiences, but we just don't have data.
Yeah. And I seen when they announced that they're going to change the classes, a lot of people saying, "See, I told you they're safe." And it's like that doesn't mean that they're safe. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, but to them it does, right? So,
Right. Yeah. We did a peptide post with Unbiased Science that was like a part one a few weeks ago that just talked about this whole thing and what peptides are. And we actually have a part two coming out, which is going to talk about patenting rules, the regulatory changes, and all of the effects. And I actually was able to bring in someone who's an intellectual property lawyer who works on
Oh,
peptide
nice.
patents for that one. So
Oh, interesting.
um, I met her on some of my peptide videos because
yeah.
someone commented to like someone commented to explain to me how I didn't know what I was talking about, basically. And then she was like, I'm actually an intellectual property lawyer, and what you're saying is accurate. And I was like, okay,
Yeah.
that's good. Because I do work on, like, I'm on a couple patents, and I also help put together patents for the things I work on. Like, I work with patent attorneys and licensing managers and people to get the data together, and there's always a strategy behind it. So it's something I've actually had quite a bit of exposure to.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
That's very
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, you get to
Um,
learn a little bit of everything and a lot about one thing.
Yeah.
I think it's great. And again, like this expertise is so needed. There's so much misinformation out there. I think um, that we really need more people like yourself communicating this because
Thank you.
I think especially now that, the FDA rules around, these particular class of peptides is going to be loosened and available to more people. I think that more people are
Yeah.
going to say, well, I can get this from my doctor. And, you know, I think that the physicians, some have already jumped on that train, and I can see other physicians joining that, if it is available with
Is there a financial
compounding.
incentive there? Is
Oh, for sure.
yeah.
I don't know. I wouldn't know.
I'm
I don't make money
sure.
that way.
I can't imagine. I mean, every doctor who I've seen promoting them usually has like a website on linked in their
Oh,
profile. And
that's
when I
true
go
if
to the
they're selling
website,
it.
the
Yeah.
clinics
Yeah.
generally offer
Yeah.
peptide therapy.
I wonder
So
what they do if there's like a side effect then, because
you probably have to sign something. I don't know. I'm sure they all have lawyers.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't
see, that's
know.
crazy. That's because we went to medicine to like help people and fix problems. And so I'm like,
Yeah, but
what
the world
happens?
doesn't think that anymore. They think that we
Yeah.
all went into science and medicine for money. And I'm like, cool. Would someone like to tell me how I upgrade my 13-year-old
I know
Subaru?
when you said there's money in peptides, I'm like, what?
Well, it's
How
funny
do you
because
imagine that?
so I'm always trying to figure out new ways to like grow my business or whatever, grow the coaching business. And
Peptides.
yeah, so it's funny. So she was like, "Hey, like if we didn't have morals, the easiest thing to do would just start selling peptides." But I'm like, I would never do that. And she's like, "I would never do that." And I'm like, "Good thing we're together in this
No,
business,
you guys
because
are two
Do
of the
that.
good ones.
yeah,
I love following your content.
yeah,
It makes me really happy, and I love seeing the coming together of the like fitness and the medicine and the fact that you also want to hear the like technical side. I love it.
yeah,
I think it's
yeah.
great.
Yeah, no,
Appreciate that.
yeah, we need more people like yourself though in this space communicating. So we really appreciate the
Yeah.
content.
So
We
why
need
don't we do
people like
this?
you guys too.
Why don't we do this? Why don't you give us what you would leave our listeners with if it was one message, if you can consolidate it, about peptides?
Oh. if someone is trying to tell you to take a peptide, you should find out exactly what data there is or isn't on that peptide. Because a lot of times people are going to, like, one of the women I spoke to has a lot of clients who go to med spas for like Botox
Oh,
or
Yes,
something.
geez.
yeah.
And they go to get their Botox and then they sell them this $300 a month peptide, stack.
Mhm.
And all these
Protocol.
websites say scientifically proven. It's important to understand that there is research that shows when you use scientific terminology to market things, people view it as being more legitimate. So
Yeah.
you're going to hear scientific terminology. You're going to hear about mitochondria. You're going to hear about tendon healing and wound repair. Oh my God, I didn't even see it. Amazing. I love it.
Yeah.
Obviously, you like MOTS-C, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
clearly.
Clearly, AMP kinase signaling. Um, you know, understanding what the data is that backs something being recommended to you. I think that should be everybody's, question, no matter what's being recommended to them. When I had spinal surgery, said like, well, how many of these do you do per year? What is the success rate? What are the potential downsides? How frequent are they? And he knew I was a scientist, so he just gave me all the numbers, and I was
Yeah.
like,
That's
okay.
awesome.
And I had the surgery, and I had a herniated disc, and I haven't had a moment of sciatica pain since, and that
Oh,
was in
nice. Yeah,
Awesome.
2012.
cool.
That's
So
amazing.
it was a great experience. But even when my doctor recommends a medication, I'm like, well, what's the data? Like, it seems like a normal question to ask. I think when you're in a non-medical environment, you're not really in the mindset of asking for that. And when someone says it's scientifically proven, we get exposed to that all the time. Like, you buy shampoo and it's like scientifically proven to improve the texture of your hair, or you buy your skincare, scientifically proven to decrease the appearance of your dark circles. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
what science is proving it? Is it the science from the company who made it with like two, rats? Or I guess rats don't really have dark circles, but like, what is the data? We should be data driven. We should be making decisions about our health based on data.
Yeah,
And if
I'll say
you don't know the data or you can't interpret the data, find someone who can.
I was just
I
gonna
was,
say that. Yeah.
that's exactly what I was going to say,
Yeah.
because even sometimes, when people can kind of spout off the sciencey things and say the data shows this or whatever, and sometimes I feel bad for some of the lay population. I'm so glad that like I'm able to read scientific studies and interpret them, but not everybody can do that, right? And that's okay. They didn't, I spent half my life, in
Same.
science. And so, it's okay if you can't, but then find somebody who is good at that you trust, that has the educational background to back that up. That,
Yeah.
again, that's why we need science communicators in this space to interpret that data for people to actually say, you know what? Yeah, they're using the word data, but these are my studies, or these are studies in like ten people that doesn't,
Yeah.
meet any kind of clinical significance. And so I think
Exactly.
we need people like that pointing this out, because it is confusing. It is very confusing for people.
Well, I'll say on that, that also runs into a bit of a problem because there is this ignorance that's out there in the general population, and it's not their fault, but they're not around it. They don't read the literature, and the people that they trust are the ones that are telling them to do this stuff.
Yep.
And they trust them, and it's like they don't know how to decipher between a trustful person who's telling them about legitimate data and not. And that's where the issue comes in, which is why like when she keeps saying like we need people like you, it's because of that reason. But then again, you have to get in front of those people. You have to make sure that like somehow, some way, your content gets in front of them so then they could see it and then they question, and it's this whole process. But it's a lot
Yeah.
easier to just be like, hey, I like their content. I trust what they're saying. If they're saying do MOTS-C, I'm gonna do it because I trust them. And they
Right.
say
And a lot
it's
of
data driven,
people,
you know?
yeah, well, a lot of people are going to see a post from you and you, Vinny, and
Yeah.
being like, in the gym or whatever, and they're going to be like, I want to do what that guy's doing. They don't care
Yeah.
what this like mid 40s mother of two has to say. Like, I
Yeah.
mean, don't get me wrong, I exercise a lot and I enjoy lifting weights, but and I'm a lifelong athlete, but
Yeah.
they don't. A certain culture, like the gym bro culture, doesn't care what I say. That I'm their mom.
Yeah.
They don't care.
Yeah.
But one thing I think is
Get the
really
minivan
important.
started. Let's go. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
hop in my minivan and let me tell you about
Yeah.
medications. um, yeah, Aaron and I are going to lecture you on the way to the
I
gym.
know. I'm like, yeah. I'm like, it's so funny how many people that you're absolutely correct. Even, the bro science, and we need but the more that we talk about it and the more that we can get this content
Yes,
to people, I think that's why it's so critical so that they can make
absolutely.
informed decisions. Because now
Yeah.
with the loosening of regulations, I think that's just going to be more confusing for people
Yeah.
to make that informed decision for themselves.
Yeah,
And I
and
think,
go ahead. No, I'm sorry.
oh, just a lot of communicators out there, like science communicators, are actually trying to put together a lot of really helpful educational content for people who want to like do their own research. So I was part of a post, actually, this woman, Caroline Waltzman, who's an MPH, put it out, and it was like how to read a scientific study. And it's like a layperson's guide to how to read a scientific paper.
Yeah,
And a lot of people put out these like hierarchy of evidence
Yeah.
ones. It's like
Yeah.
meta-analysis, controlled case studies, like observational, all of the different types of studies that are out there and how to sort of put them in a hierarchy of evidence if you want to place weight on them when you're making a decision about something. And the other one that I think is super critical is a lot of people have done posts about like the red flags to look for.
yeah,
Like,
Yes.
is someone who's telling you something is a problem also selling the cure? Are
Yeah.
they
Yeah. That
using
is a bad.
emotionally laced language? Are they trying to cause anxiety or fear with what they're saying? Like the fear mongering, it's out of control. Like everything is toxic. Like, well, in what dose?
yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah,
it's
100%.
yeah, there are resources out there. So people just need to educate themselves too.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
we can only put out so much content, right? We can
Yeah.
only do so
Yeah,
much.
I have a
We just,
full-time job
yeah,
and I have two kids and I have other hobbies too.
yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean, I go on the TikTok and I see these people doing lives all day and they're wellness experts and they're supposed to be helping people and they're on the live all day and they know more than doctors and they're debunking all the stuff about what doctors say. And I'm like, you don't even have a full-time, like your full-time job is hopping on a TikTok live. Like she can't do that.
So it's
Like, who
funny,
want her
like
to go
he'll
on
get
there?
home and
You
he's
don't
like
live stream
arguing
your
with
patient
somebody.
encounters?
Yeah. And he's arguing with somebody.
Yeah.
I'm like, and that's the funny thing is like people don't also realize that a lot of these science communicators are taking their own time. They're not getting paid for this. It's because we care about people and about the information
Yep.
that is out there. And so, I get home from a clinic day and he's, in a TikTok live and I'm like, I want nothing to do with
Yeah,
that.
leave me
But
alone.
I have to tell him he's wrong because he's wrong. I have to tell him. She's like, why are you wasting your time and energy?
I'm just gonna start sending everyone to you, Vinny. I'm gonna anytime someone's not nice, who's like
Oh,
mansplaining me, I'm gonna
he's
be like,
great.
here, talk to this guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm fortunate enough to have someone to where like I'm like, all right, this is what I'm about to say. Is this is right, right? Like
It's
this is what I believe is right. And she's like, yeah, that's right.
get on there,
Yeah.
but you can say
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
Yeah, you exactly. You have your internal barometer
Yeah. You got
in
to
your
see.
house.
Listen, I get pretty heated, especially now with like these new genetic experts.
Oh, geez.
Where, dude, you were selling supplements for the last 5 years, and you just started putting out content about genetics. How are you a genetic expert? What does that mean? Are you a geneticist?
Yeah.
Like, where did you go to school to do this? And now you're lecturing people on how they have to modify their diet and take these supplements to improve their genetics. I'm like, this is the
Yeah.
dumbest
Explain to
thing
me
I've
how
ever heard in my life.
CRISPR works before you get to be a genetic. It's
Yes,
like
yes.
people that talk about mitochondria. I'm like, draw the electron transport chain.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Draw the
please.
TCA cycle. When you can
Yes.
explain that to me. But the thing is you can just go Google it or use AI.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's true.
And
Yeah.
people don't understand, like I use AI every day, but the way you use it is really
Yes.
important. The kinds of prompts you put in, the type of source material it's allowed to use. Like I have a chat GPT and I always ask it a question that's like, can you evaluate X? Not show me evidence of X and Y.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
have
yeah.
to be really unbiased in your prompts. And you also have to say, do not ever use Reddit, Instagram,
Oh,
like,
yeah.
I only want you to look at PubMed and primary literature or patents, or like you have to be very tailored the way you use it because you can get wildly incorrect
And you got to
outputs.
check those PMIDs because they'll give you
Yeah.
some BS.
Oh, yeah, it'll
I did that.
hallucinate papers.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Definitely.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Definitely. You have to check it.
Yeah. Lots of things we all have to learn as technology advances and we
Definitely.
age.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, Lee, thank you so much for your time today. We actually just hit the hour mark. That's like one of our first, right on time. So,
Wow. It was an
yeah,
absolute pleasure. I love
yeah.
chatting with you guys.
Yeah, and I listen, we would love to do this again sometime. We would just I
Totally.
think we want to get more specific into as more research comes out. Maybe even with Retta. When Retta comes out and you do like a whole thing on Retta and what it can do when it gets approved, right? When it gets approved and it's out there. when it gets past
Yes, but we need to have
is it past the phase 3 trials? Did it pass it?
it's the phase 3 results look good. I don't
Okay.
know how many phase 3s are going on, but then it has to go through approval and, market release. That still takes a while.
Yeah.
And then there's always post-market monitoring too. But, I can comment on what data I see, but I'm not a clinician. So if you want to know all the things it can do, you got to turn to your right.
Well, I love the drug development process. So I think it's so cool that you are very familiar with that, and to educate us about that is amazing. Thank you.
Well, I appreciate you guys having me here. It's truly an honor. And it's just been amazing being kind of embraced and welcomed by the fitness and medical and all the other communities. So thank you.
Keep doing what you do. Please don't stop.
I'll do my best.
All right.
Keep doing what you're doing.
I'll do my best. So on behalf of Balanced Bodies, we just want to say thank you for joining us on this episode of the Balanced Bodies Blueprint.
We are committed to bringing valuable content. And if you enjoyed today's episode, we'd greatly appreciate it if you can take a moment and like it and leave a 5-star review.
On Apple, just go to the show, scroll down to the bottom and rate it there. If you're on Spotify, go to the show's page, click the 3 dots, and you can rate it there as well.
And if you believe in the power of knowledge, share this episode on your social media to try and get the information out there to as many people as possible.
And as you navigate your own path towards better health, remember that Balanced Bodies is forever in your corner. See you all next week.
The podcast content may include discussions of medical topics and health-related information. However, the information provided should not be considered exhaustive or complete, and it should not be relied upon as a substitute for professional medical advice or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified healthcare providers with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition or treatment.